Today, I'm talking to Michelle Schuler, a founding member of Realogics Sotheby's International Realty of Seattle, Washington, renowned for being the best in relocation. A real estate agent for 15 years, Michelle has received numerous awards and accolades for her sales successes and client satisfaction, including recently being ranked the #1 agent in the state of Washington. We talk about what it takes and means to be a true relocation expert. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we have Michelle Schuler with Realogics Sotheby's International Realty, that is Seattle, Washington. She is a top real estate agent in Seattle. She does over $60 million a year, is in relocation, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. But that being said, Michelle, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your successes, and we're going to visit how you got into this business in the first place.
You bet. So I've been in the business about 15 years. Started actually in my former life, I was a CPA, worked for Microsoft in finance. Left there, I went to work for a startup. So we had about 9 employees when I joined, 147 when I left. It's a big transition, took on a lot of different roles, was a little tired at the end of that episode in my life, went out, got my real estate license with the intention to buy and flip homes. That's how I got into the business. Thank God my managing broker at the time approached me and he said, Michelle, why are you doing this? All the capital risk. This was, thank God, 2006. I got out by the skin of my teeth in 2007 before the market crashed. So, which was also a really interesting time to be starting really actively selling real estate. From that point forward, I was one of the top producing agents at Coldwell Banker, where I was at the time. And thank God I got out of that. So,
wow.
Really
so you were at Coldwell Banker, you started in about 2006 at the peak of the market. But of course, there was a nice surprise right after. And did you say you started at Coldwell Banker, but were you in Florida?
No, I was in Seattle. I've been in Seattle first round.
In Seattle. Right. So that opens up the door for so many questions. A change in brokers.
Yep.
Starting a career in what seemed like a good time, but turned out to be the worst time.
That's right.
In a long time. And then how you got into relocation from flipping homes to a full-time agent in relocation. So first of all, how did you, when you got into business, how did you get traction in the recession in 2000?
Well, I was scrappy. Of course, at the same time, I went through a divorce. So that was an interesting time too. A divorce, the recession, new business, starting over from scratch. That was really fascinating. But I was scrappy. So I had a nice book of business from my career in finance, which helped me. And then I just took on, I started doing things that nobody else would do. I was doing short sales. I was, doing all the analytical stuff. I was developing partnerships with a lot of attorneys. So I just was doing things nobody else wanted to do. So it was just getting my hands dirty. I was taking on listings at a lower price point because that luxury market just collapsed, as it did most places, but in the Seattle area. So there was a lot of people in my office at the time that were selling, just 4, 5, 6 really big listings every year. And I was turning over a lot of, the time, $500,000 sales. So I was, doing high volume, lower price point at the time, and then doing a lot of short sales, created, like I said, really deep relationships with a lot of attorneys at the time.
So, you're in a market where there's a good price point. I don't take this the wrong way, everybody who does this, but you can get away with selling 4 or 5 houses a year. I don't know if you can even get away with that in Atlanta. But how did you know? Was it because of your situation that you were like, whatever it takes?
I think it's my personality more than anything. It's whatever it takes. So, I could see the writing on the wall. You could see the dip. You could see the change. You could see, and I could also see opportunity. So I was seeing an opportunity with short sales that people didn't want to touch it. The closing process took so long. It was so much more work. But I saw an opportunity in there, so I really exploited that opportunity, and also for my own personal benefit and need. But yeah, it became a great opportunity to create those relationships. And I have then since sold a lot of those homes working on both sides of those transactions with people buying and selling homes. So that was kind of a great way to, a horrible, wonderful, awful way to launch in a way. But it ended up, you just got to get, you've got to be, I think, really crafty in this market, especially at that time, to be successful. Yeah.
Well, you said you were willing to do what no one else was willing to do. You're in a recession. You're already hungry. So I think it's Steve Jobs when he talks about when you look backwards, how everything lined itself up perfectly.
Exactly.
You have to get an education, get one fast, learn, work hard, set yourself up for success when the market came back.
Yep, exactly.
There's no time or room for denial.
Right, exactly.
So how did that lead? Kind of give us, when you got in, did you have moments where you were like, there's no way. This is what have I gotten myself into?
There were many of those conversations I had with myself. Yep, exactly. So I think once I transitioned out of, flipping homes into selling homes, it was almost 10 months before I closed a transaction. And then as we went through into the deep dive, I actually went, I think it was 6 or 8 months without a paycheck. And it's just but I knew the pipeline was full. So, there wasn't that much stress. I knew it was full. It was just a timing issue with when these transactions were going to close and just being crafty enough. It was all about creating those relationships and keeping the pipe full. And I've been successful at doing that since. Yeah.
Wow. So in the beginning, it was short sales, a lot of short sales. I remember I had already been an agent for a few years and I didn't want to touch a short sale, but I figured out I had to. And that was a lot of what I did. But then after that, because you've got a really, really strong focus on relocation. So kind of unfold, I want to keep it chronological. You had the change in brokers, and obviously you've evolved into being highly focused and specialized and skilled at relocation. What was the order of events that led you to where you are today?
So we have, in Seattle, Amazon is a huge employer. So I was invited to join the relocation team within our brokerage to start helping out folks on the Amazon team. And that there were so many people moving in and having that opportunity to work with that team. And at the time, the price point wasn't that high, but eventually, just given my skill set, I was provided the opportunity to work with more of our VIP level clients at Amazon and also Starbucks here local. We also have, a Google team. There's a lot of technology companies here. So really getting involved. Again, a lot of people don't want to touch those transactions because you're obligated to pay a referral fee. I had a different attitude, which was, it was an opportunity to get introduced to people I otherwise would not have the opportunity to meet. So yes, I was taking, a haircut on the commission, but the opportunity and upside down the road was huge to me, to meet those people, to interact with those people, to have the referral base outside of that relocation network. And it was good at it. I grew up in Seattle, so it was very natural to me. I've lived here my entire life. So being able to have somebody come in and, be a concierge and show them the entire area, not one specific area, one specific community. These are people that know nothing. And they're so desiring of help and support and empathy and direction. And a lot of people, there's a lot of emotion involved in that, and more emotion when you're moving from across the country. If you're coming from Atlanta to Seattle, it's scary, and you've got kids.
There's a lot of emotion in the shift and the price point.
Oh, yeah. And then there's the sticker shock that goes with any transition.
Yeah.
The clients today, I just said that, unless it's our San Francisco buyers moving up here, there is sticker shock. That's it.
Exactly. So what point did you transition from short sales to relocation?
There wasn't an overnight transition. I think at about the same time, our economy started to recover in part because of Amazon and all the hiring. So it was really a transition of letting go of one and moving into the other. So, short sale was phasing out over in the Seattle area, about 2010, 2011, and that's when the relo business really picked up. So we had, some degree of relos coming in, but then it kind of shot up. And over the last, certainly 10 years in Seattle, Amazon has completely changed the landscape of who we are, who Seattle is. So
and then you changed brokers, and what year was that?
Correct. Yeah, I just joined Sotheby's last year. I was invited to join as a founding member of our new Bellevue office, which
I've heard about.
Yeah, this is where everything's happening in Seattle and the Bellevue on the east side. Yeah.
Okay. So why Sotheby's?
Why? Oh my gosh, why Sotheby's? It's funny because Stacy and Dean had pursued me for a long time, and really the crux of it was the marketing. So I had come from a company with a relatively small marketing staff. Even though I had a lot of resources there, They could not keep par. And I think that the crux of this was, without naming any names, somebody said to me, well, Michelle, Sotheby's, they're a marketing company. And I said, what? By definition, isn't everything we do to market and sell real estate? So I think it was that comment that kind of set me over the edge. And I had hired a new assistant, and she challenged me. She came from, she was supporting a very, very successful broker in Compass in the San Francisco area. And when she came on board, she said, Michelle, what is your brokerage doing for you? What are they doing for you to help you? And I said, gosh, I can't articulate a good answer to that question, which really set in motion a whole series of questions I was asking of myself and what I want. And the opportunity came up here in Bellevue, which is where all the growth is happening in the greater Seattle area. All the employers are moving over here to the east side. There'll be 35,000 new jobs in the greater Bellevue area, which is astonishing. And so with that opportunity, being a founding member here, with everything that Sotheby offers, and it's just been an amazing transition.
35,000 new jobs.
35,000 new jobs, correct.
So being in relocation is not a bad place to be.
Not
35,000
new jobs. That's right.
I mean, you just need a few of those.
Just a few. Just a few. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's just in relocation.
That's right.
So tell us about because a lot of agents, I mean, I think people think, well, isn't everybody relocating when they buy a house? But by relocation, we mean they're moving from another city, correct, usually for jobs, or, I mean, to me, it's anybody moving from another city into your market is a relocation because they don't necessarily know where they want to land.
Right.
I don't know where to begin to ask the question. So if you want to answer a different question from what I asked to get the message across on the importance of what you do, please do, because I think everybody listening, including with me would want to know. It can be a relocation. You're getting people, like you said, who don't know the city. They need to learn a lot, and they need to learn it fast. What's the process? How are you really good at it? And how are you still efficient at it for their sake and, of course, yours?
So I think it's about, I really spend a lot of time on the intake. So when I meet somebody, I'm usually just given their name, some information. I try to set up a call with that individual, and if they're married, their spouse or their partner, to have that conversation to really start to understand what they're looking for. Some people are trying to recreate the life they have wherever they're coming from. So they want a similar architectural style type of house. Some people are thinking, okay, we're upending the family. We want a really Pacific Northwest lifestyle. We want something completely different. And then I try to separate the two as well. So oftentimes there's two parties. I'm going to try to understand what they're trying to accomplish individually and then as a family unit. What are their kids looking for? What sports are they into? What sort of activities are important? What do they do as hobbies? Are they skiers? Are they hikers? Are they runners? Are they into their book clubs? Like, what is their lifestyle that they're trying to recreate? It's not just about, I want, a bedroom, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, X square footage. And then we talk about level setting expectations because most of my clients are not coming from an area where the price point is equivalent. So we have to do a lot of level setting because I've had a lot of people in my car where somebody's crying because they're really unhappy about what they're giving up. I usually ask them to send me pictures or video of their home to really understand, to help me understand quickly where they're coming from, what their lifestyle, what their commute looks like, where their kids go to school. It's really a comprehensive dialogue. And then it's really about quickly building trust. They need to understand that I know the area, that I have their best interest in mind. It's not necessarily about a quick sale. Sometimes getting folks into a rental is a better decision than quickly moving them through that process. Because usually what's happening is they're not only buying a home on this side, but they're selling a home on the other side. They're selling a home full of memories. They're selling a home where they've established friendships and relationships. Their kids are riding the bike, through the neighborhood. They've got friends. There's so much emotion that goes on, not just with, we've got a job change, we've got maybe a cross-country move, we've got maybe the other spouse trying to find employment here in the Seattle area. We've got kids that might be really angry, they're emotional. So there's all these little factors that we try to figure out, how do we make everybody happy and involved and engage everybody in the process? And that, I think, is the most important thing, is building that trust to say, as they're looking at homes, you need to trust me when I say this is going to be a better spot. And sometimes they come in with a preconceived notion of where they want to be, which is largely driven if they've got kids by schools. But helping me say, why don't we consider some other options that might be something you haven't considered, but based on how you're describing your lifestyle and what you want, that might be a better fit for you. Mm-hmm. And we kind of, approach it that way. And then, a lot of hand holding through that process.
So just listening to you, I broke it down into 3 things. Number 1, listen and understand first. Ask lots and lots of questions to understand their lifestyle and where they're coming from. Number two, as they're coming in, set expectations, and to be able to set expectations that are heard and to be able to understand and listen to them, you've got to build trust quickly. And I think doing things like getting pictures to the things you're doing. I mean, it's funny because I can tell you take that, you just like, well, of course, this is just what you do. Like, how do you tie your shoes or drive a car? It's not difficult. But the important little nuances that you talked about, listen and understand first, set expectations, and building trust quickly.
Yep.
I think building trust is, well, in my mind, I'm asking you two questions at once. I want to hit on trust real quickly. Building trust can be challenging sometimes in our business because we're real estate agents. We're just in it for the money. I don't know you. You were just assigned to me for relocation. Right. Who are you to tell me what to do? Just to get out of the way, get me into houses and let me tell you when to make an offer and let me tell you how to negotiate it. Do you get any of that?
I do. And that's where it's so important up front to build that credibility, to be a professional, act like a professional. When I meet people, we set up a call. I try to get both parties on the phone. I treat them both with equal respect. I'm not talking to just, one party and not the other. I'm really trying to get everybody on the same page. We set up agendas. So when they come in, when I pick them up in the car, they're always in my car. I want to control the situation. I'm going to have an agenda to say, this is exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to see these houses. They're all printed out. I've got a gallery of photos. I've planned where we're going to lunch, what we're going to do. If there's kids, I plan breaks in there, snacks, time to run around a park. We're going to see, and part of what I do when I do area tours, we're not just looking at houses. We're looking at all the amenities, the schools, where they would go shopping, what that looks like. We spend a lot of time. I said, hey, let's pop out. Let's go in the grocery store because those are your people. That's where you're hanging out, where you're spending time. So a lot of thought goes into that. And I think the credibility comes from, my experience in real estate, my experience in finance, that background, because the people I'm working with are generally extremely sophisticated buyers, extremely intelligent. They have limited amount of time. And so I've got a limited amount of time to build that trust. And then that window of opportunity leaves. I've got one shot. And so it's about being credible, about being available, about taking the calls when they call. I try to be very available. And when they've got me, when I'm with them in the car, I don't take other calls. I might, if I have to set expectations about I'm expecting a call or I'm negotiating a deal, I'll let them know up front that I'll be stepping aside for a few moments to do that. But that's why I have a full-time assistant that's dealing with all that on the back end. So they really feel like they've got me 100% because their time is so valuable when they're here. And I think that's where a lot of people lose it, is that they need you to have your undivided attention when you're working in Reload because they're coming in, and they need to feel like you get them. So mom to mom, like having kids and understanding that, and being empathetic when the kids are crying or they're grouchy or they're upset. Well, of course they're upset. You're moving them across the country. That's a reasonable way for them to feel. So it's not being judgmental, but being empathetic, right? Yeah. So little things like that can go a long ways with building trust on both sides. With, if you've got two parties that you're working with, is understanding both people's expectations. And maybe the party that's relocating for the job, they just need to buy that house fast because they need to be focused on their new job and the employment. Whereas the other one is more worried about maybe kids or the household, or how are they going to make friends? Like, what is that like in the community? How am I going to meet somebody? How are my kids going to meet people?
That could be incredibly stressful, and having empathy for that. Do you find, for example, I shouldn't say this out loud because it's being recorded, but that is exhausting.
It's exhausting.
I mean, I deal with a lot of people. I do deal with a lot of relo, but usually by the time they get to me, they know where they want to be because I'm more specialized in an area than in relo. Or I have someone on my team that can help them with this process as opposed to me or the part of town they want to be in. But sorry for going on about that, but I preface that with to say, how do you find, because they're coming in for a couple of days, do you compartmentalize some of that time to say, hey guys, go see these properties, go see these areas, spend time alone, and then I'm going to step back in? Or how do you know how to structure all of that?
It really depends. So sometimes if they're coming in for more of a house hunting tour, I say, let me meet you at at the outset when you first get there. I want to meet with them initially to kind of orient them, or they'll just go out in the weeds. They have no idea where they're going. They're going to get lost. They're going to make bad decisions. Or if they say we want some time together, it's our anniversary, we're flying out, great. I'm going to give you, here's some neighborhoods to drive around. I'll give them an agenda, an itinerary. Go to this restaurant, go have dinner here, go have lunch there, go to this park, check this out. Maybe you want to jump on a ferry, go check out Bainbridge Island, do something like that. I try to give them an itinerary loosely and then let them go explore. Maybe they want to, maybe they're very early in the process and open houses might be an effective way for them to kind of wander around. But I don't let them just go on whatever platform they're looking at and say, oh, I'm going to go find these open houses, because they won't experience it in the same way they could with some guidance. So I really, if they do want time, I typically say, let's meet up front. When you first arrive, let's get together, let's set the agenda, let's talk about this, let's review what you're thinking about and the game plan, and know that they can always call me when they're here. So that's how I typically like to lay it out.
So do you ever have, I'm just thinking about my few relo experiences, do you ever have couples come in and they kind of think they know their agenda, and as an agent you're going, that is not the right agenda? How do you we interrupt that fairly quickly. So I have people come in more often than not. They say, I want to be in a specific area, but they have a defined budget. And we start out, I don't like to budget creep, so I try to keep them within that budget. And it's fairly early in the process we define that they need to step up the budget. They either need to move out further or they need to step up the budget. One of two things has to happen. So I try to get in front of that. And again, that's about level setting expectations and telling them, you need to trust me when they want to maybe go look at a specific house. I'll tell them, that's not a neighborhood you want to be in. It's too far out. The commute's awful. I've seen the house. It's not worth it. You need to trust me because I've been there. And we develop that trust, which is important. And it takes time sometimes. And sometimes they have to go see it. And I think a few times we'll go see a house that they might want to go see. And then they realize, probably we should trust Michelle. She's bringing us to better houses along the way. And I also set expectations. Sometimes when people come in, if they're here, let's say, for example, in the fall, and we don't have a lot of inventory on the market, I'll say this isn't a very good representation of the types and styles of homes that we might find in this area, but I'm going to drive you by some homes that have been sold recently. Let's go show you what you can afford in your budget that maybe I can't get you into today, but I can give you a flavor of what would be available a month from now or 2 months from now or 3 months from now. And they probably appreciate that a lot because it gives them an idea of what's to come and do you have, what's your process of they come in, they know what they want and they just can't find it? How do you handle that? Because they need to find it. And then maybe they rent, but how do you handle it? Do you have kind of a protocol? So
that happens a lot, more often than not actually in our market because we have such constrained inventory. People come in and I have a lot of clients right now that are in the same boat waiting. So I have a lot of clients that are renting right now. And I tell them, and I don't know that they always believe me, but the right house will always come along. And it does. By some stroke of magic, it's going to come along. So I ask them to hang with me, to trust me. And I know that their anxiety levels are going up, but my goal is never to sell somebody just any house, but to sell them the right house. And I would rather see them on a short-term basis in a rental than buying the wrong house or in the wrong neighborhood. And I always tell my clients, I just don't want you to wake up and curse my name in the morning when you've made an unhappy decision. I'd rather take the time to get you situated. And I know it's inconvenient sometimes being in a rental, but it's better than buying the wrong house. That's a huge financial investment. So let's get them, even if they need to get the kids situated on a short-term basis, rent something close to the schools, try to make it fun, maybe rent in a place that's got a pool or something to give the kids an activity. But I'd much rather go that route and then have patience. But they call me. Oftentimes I'll get a call from one spouse or the other saying, can you call my spouse? They're stressing out. I need some support. Can you go meet up and go to coffee? Let's go have a drink. Let's do something to help. Let us know that there's going to be some relief that we're going to actually find that house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. And you know that because as an agent, you know the market. Mm-hmm. So knowing the market, you know the house is going to come up because you know what they want and you've kind of aligned.
That's right.
What the market has to offer, and this is what you guys want to buy, and it will come together.
Yep.
So do you have any stories you can give us that kind of, well, first of all, at what point, I'm going backwards for a minute, but at what point in starting your career did you go from, this is crazy, what was I thinking, to, okay, this is actually going to work?
That's a good question. I always felt like it was going to work. I mean, I always had the state of mind, the mindset that this was going to work. I don't think I ever thought this isn't going to work. I think I thought I was crazy sometimes. But I think once you get to that point where I could always look and see the pipeline, and always knew, my income's fine, totally fine. I can actually take time off. I can live my life. I can have that balance. I know that my business is fine now. And I probably took, at least a solid 5 years into real estate that I had that confidence without the worry. But it was, it was hard work, but I work my business like a business. So I don't assume, there's going to be this windfall of any opportunity. That if you treat it like a business and run it like a business, it will behave like a business and perform, that doesn't mean it starts out immediately, but it's going to take some time and a financial investment, an investment of time, and commitment to making it work. But I think it was a lot about mindset that, to me, I was never going to fail. It was never not going to work. I don't have what next? I love it. So and I love helping people, and that reward is, in the relocation side, there's so much need. And while it's emotionally draining sometimes, because you can take on all their emotions as well, it's so rewarding when they find that right house.
So you've been doing this for 14 years?
15 years, yep.
15 years.
Yep.
So after 15 years, relocation, it's funny because relocation is something that you really have to be a good agent. You really have to know your market, and you really have to know beyond your market, but how to handle people, how to, navigate the city, how to make sure you show them, know more about the city than just values in real estate. But it's something that it's kind of like, it's what the hungry agents want to do. The more, as you become more experienced and you're a very successful agent after 15 years, a lot of those agents are like, no, thank you. I'll go list houses or do something differently or different. What has drawn you and kept you in? Because you definitely are really good at it and highly focused on it. What is it about that? And I ask this for two reasons: for people interested in relo, and for other people going, how do I decide what I want to do and what I should stick to?
Yeah, and I think it's just imparting the knowledge. So having done this long enough, having worked in such a wide geographic area, which a lot of agents don't, and I always have, being from Seattle, understanding the economics, I really like the educational part of it, so that it makes me happy. I know that I'm providing a service to the people I'm working with. It can be draining sometimes, there's no question about it, but I think if you can portion it out, and I feel like now I get to decide who I want to work with, so I don't work with everybody who's relocating, but a more discreet audience. And they tend to be, the C-suite clients that are coming in where they just don't have any time they need help. They really that's all they want is just to have some guidance and some help and some counsel and a professional. So I love it. I think it'll always be a component part of my business. And of course I list homes and I sell homes, and I don't work exclusively relocation, but it's been such a huge part. And so those people tend to refer their colleagues, and I tend to, make my rounds within, different groups within Amazon or Starbucks or different organizations as well, where I've sold a lot of that, the executive level team at those companies homes, because they know that I'm competent and I can help those people and guide them through the process.
So we've all got, especially me, our assumptions about what's challenging about this, and we've talked about it, but you personally, and doing this for so long and becoming so good at it, what has been the most challenging part of relocation and or being a real estate agent?
Oh, that's a good question. I think on the relo side, it's learning to not take on the emotions of the clients, because it is so hyper emotional to be able to act as a counselor and act, but without absorbing all that. It's kind of like being a parent and not absorbing your kids' emotions. Like, you have to be somewhat detached and still available and loving and putting them in a container and helping them, but not taking it all on yourself.
Not getting sucked into it.
Yeah, and again, you can have feuding spouses, you could have unhappy kids, but to be there as counsel, but not absorbing that, and I think that's hard. I think that was a hard thing for me to do. And then I think on the just general real estate side, in the beginning, I think one of the most difficult things for me was rejection. Going on a listing presentation and losing. I'm very, very competitive. And that was very hard, and not taking that personally, learning how not to, again, internalize that or own that emotion, but to let go of it and just say, well, there'll be another one. And now I'm very much like, there'll be another one. I'm not worried. I'm very confident when I walk in. But having that, again, that mindset and all the emotion, I think this is going to be an extremely emotionally volatile business if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
So stepping back from that, and then doing the things to feed yourself to make that roller coaster a little smoother. And it's still volatile. It's still going to have its moments. We still have frustration, but I think for me, it's the emotionality of it that was more difficult. The houses I love, I get to go see pretty houses all day, so that's fun. And the business side of it that's the easy part for me. Contracts, negotiation, that's easy. So that's just the easy part.
The negotiating is so much. The negotiating was so scary to me in the beginning, but I was like 25, so.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I came out of the world.
Oh my gosh, this is too much. It made me grow up fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to visit you on both of those challenges. In the challenge of, I think that's been my big, I think mine are, and maybe everybody's are, taking on the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
What have you found has been like, did you ever come up with, was it just a matter of time and getting over it? Or did you ever come up with a way of shifting your perspective, having conversations, asking questions certain ways? What did evolve for you to have you able to do that without getting caught up in it?
Well, I think one of the things I learned is diffusing conflict or emotion right out of the chute. So, for example, text is a very unfortunate way to communicate. Yes. So whenever I sense emotion in a text, I immediately pick up the phone and call. If I can have an in-person conversation, that's going to be much more powerful. Let's go have coffee. If somebody's feeling anxious, stressed out, and I can get in front of them, that can diffuse the situation very quickly. So I learned that, to take that equation out of it. I try to set the expectation from the moment that I meet somebody that I will be totally transparent with them, and I expect that in reverse, that if there's any sort of issue, they're not feeling like I'm not communicating appropriately enough, frequently, they need more, please bring that to me and I will endeavor to change. Like, let's get all that stuff out in front. I always say, you can use me as a sounding board, you can use me as a shoulder to cry on, you can call me anytime when you're feeling angst, and they do. They do a lot.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I just try, and I at some point, a colleague of mine said, it's not about you, it's about them. And I think keeping that in context to really, when they're they're spinning up and then you just feel like, gosh, what's that all about? It is about them. It's about what's going on in their life. It's about the stressors they have, which even just simply moving is a huge stress. And throw into that, conflict with kids, marriage, everything else. It's a lot. And when you just give them usually, a sounding board, they're very appreciative. And the other part I think is just about, and I've learned this as I've gotten older, is about being more real. So being very authentic with myself, and I'll share my own parenting challenges, life challenges. I can't share with them an experience moving across the country because I've never done it, but I certainly can empathize with them. I can help them. I'll share funny tidbit stories and just make it more real, because we're all in the same, we're doing this together, so we might as well.
I think sometimes when people are moving, it feels so traumatic because it's your home. It's easy to feel like you're being wronged because so many things can go wrong, or there's so many uncertainties, and we all want certainty, and reminding them like, hey, it's okay. Like, this is normal. It's not just you, and knowing that somebody's got empathy for them in the process. But you make me think about, I always quote Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, life changer. That's my way of dealing. Just read that book 7 times. Only 7. I haven't read it in a while. But one of the things I kind of inadvertently learned was, I'm a sensitive soul. If you yell, at least the younger version of me, if you yelled at me, it was like, I just couldn't handle it, because it was like, I just wanted to like take your pain on for you, which is sympathy, not empathy. But one of the things for me, and I think kind of what you said, it's not about you. Like, when you do that, you make it about you. It's about them. And that now I actually don't have people yell at me very often, but when they do, and maybe this is why, it's like shifting your own mindset to realizing it's not about you. If a client yells at me, I'm like, wow, they really trust me. They are not going to come undone like that with somebody, or there's a real problem. But usually they're doing it like my kids might yell with me, but they're not going to at school, because they know the love here is unconditional. And the same thing with our clients, and getting that kind of understanding, it really makes you go, okay, wait a minute, I've got to really respect who I am to them and what I do for them. And it is not, I love what you said. It's about them. It's not, none of this is about you. That's not what you're here for. I love that. Rejection. How do you overcome that? Because I even find people making up rejection in their own heads about business, when it's not, it's like, that's not rejection. That's just a no, but that is not even, but So sometimes we want success so badly
Mhm.
that we perceive or fear or kind of self-fulfill ourselves into it.
Exactly. Yep.
So
Well,
what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. So with rejection, I mean, I think, again, you cannot take it personally. This business, I mean, nobody would survive in this business if you took everything personally. Oh my gosh, I didn't get that listing. Oh, I lost that buyer. Oh my gosh, everything's like the world is in. And I used to sit and ruminate about it forever. It was awful.
Right.
And now, not that I don't, I think there's still an element of that is like, oh, I really wish I would have won that listing. But now it's more about, gosh, let's kind of do a postmortem and figure out, okay, what did I do that where I didn't create the relationship with that person. You can't create a relationship with everybody. So, or that maybe I wasn't willing to cut my commission, or maybe I didn't, maybe they're going to go list with their sister-in-law or whatever, or I had a really formidable competitor. So let's really evaluate why I lost. Why did I not win that listing? And sometimes you're just off your game. I mean, I find I get into patterns of success or losing, and it's because something's not, I'm bringing that energy into the listing presentation, for example, and then just doesn't, I'm not on my A game, or not, to me, where I build that confidence is by being prepared and coming in with everything at the ready and knowledge and anticipating what the question might be so I can answer it. So, and I think I hate to say this, but as a female, I think we all like internalize all these emotions and it's hurtful and we carry that, but I try to not, and to step back and be a little more rational as I'm looking at it after the fact to say, oh, well, all right, there's another one. And there always is another one coming. So.
Well, not only that, this business is one. And I would say, not to be sexist to everybody, but as women, at least me, you kind of, when something goes wrong, it's all your fault.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about this business is you kind of just learn, like, no, it's not. Just be your best. Just keep going. Because there's so much more opportunity. Yep. You can like wallow in this and make it bigger by focusing on it, or just keep focusing on, like you said, like, how do I make it better? How do I do it better next time? How do I improve? Oh, that might have been, tell me if this happens to you. But as I've been in business for 16, we've been about the same. And I will not follow up the way I know I should on something, or I will not, and I hope no one's listening to this that I didn't follow up on that I really wished I would have. So just like everybody take this with a grain of salt. But there have been times where I've thought, I really should, because I almost think it's disrespectful. Like if someone pursues me to do business and I'm not following up and going after it, what's wrong with me? Yeah. And then it's funny because after a while, you almost have like a subliminal like screening for people that you don't even have time to like look at what you did, but time goes by and you're like, oh yeah, that wasn't the right deal for me, or that was not the right time, or they came back and listed with me when the time was right for the house to sell. Or it's funny how you just focus on not making it about you and being rejected, but about being your best, doing the best by your clients and by what's right, which I'll give a note to Sotheby's on that. Sotheby's is definitely that kind of a company that you've got the right marketing, the right everything, but in doing that, it works out. And everybody, you don't have to be with Sotheby's, but I know you're with Sotheby's, and that's a lot of the alignment for you and what you do.
Exactly.
And it does it for me. But anything to add to that before I ask you? I'm going to ask you one more, and then I'm going to ask you my quote final three.
Yeah, no, I'm good. That's what.
What is your biggest strength? What have you found to be your biggest strength and kind of unexpected, because you may have become an agent and thought this is what I'm going to be good at, and discovered something bigger and greater about yourself and how to do business? That's kind of broad.
Oh, it is broad. Yeah, so I think coming out of the world of finance, I would have assumed I'm going to do so great, excel in contracts and all that great, which I do. But that's not actually what people care about. I think it's about creating that relationship, creating that trust, being an advisor, taking on that role that I genuinely love. And that I think is it's probably the most powerful thing in real estate, is creating the trust and the relational thing. It's all about relationships, because people can go by, in our market, as with most, we've got a lot of technology threats, different business models. There's a lot of alternatives out there for people. So we have to add value. And I think just having that value add, which I think more than anything right now is relational. So I think that surprised me, given where I came from, my background as a CPA. I'm wearing a totally different hat right now, which was a nice transition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you probably thought the CPA was the big value add for you.
And it turns
out to be your way of working with people and
Right.
everything we've talked about so far.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you one more, and then I'm going to do the final three. Coming into this business, what has been your biggest aha and or lesson learned about just being a great real estate agent and being the best agent you can be?
I think the biggest, I guess, surprise I think about the market is or in real estate, is that it actually can be very collaborative. You know, I came into this business thinking it was more of a competitive model. We're all competing with one another. And understanding that you can create that collaboration and partnership with other agents that help propel your business, they really having that ability to collaborate with each other. I have had put more deals together through relationships with other agents than not. And that's a big, I think that was an aha moment probably, within the last 5+ years, that is probably one of the most powerful things we can do is work together as agents to help bring about deals, to help as a sounding board with each other so that not to compete, but to help each other and to lift each other up. I think that would be the biggest sort of aha for me that was surprising.
Well, there's so much business out there.
Yeah.
There's so much business. It's if you're good at what you do, you're going to do business.
Yep.
And I love that about our business. It's not as cutthroat as everybody. I mean, it definitely is tough. You got to have a thick skin, but at the end of the day, if you just hone in on what's right and you're good at what you do and you work with other agents to help them, they help. It's amazing how giving.
Oh, absolutely.
The people in our industry are. Okay, final three. Number one, what do you find, and you can get crazy out there on this one, what do you find has been your most powerful tool in making you a successful agent?
My most powerful tool is probably preparedness. I mean, I go into every listing presentation, every buyer presentation, it's about preparedness. So a lot of people would say of me, she just anticipates, like she knew the answer to the questions before we even ask, and that's where I wanted to be. And I find that's how I gain confidence, is by anticipating that and being prepared. And I think without that, I wouldn't have the confidence. So I think that's probably my biggest strength.
I love that, because you know how many agents before a listing appointment, and I'm often guilty of it, are running around pulling stuff together last minute and kind of running in there, winging it on their personality.
Yep.
And then they wonder why they didn't win the listing.
Yep.
Anyway, next question. I love that. That's such great advice. That's the first time we've gotten that answer. Number two, book. What is a book? Okay. What is a book that you would recommend reading? And it can be life and or business that's been most life-changing for you.
What has been life-changing in terms of a book? The Tao of Pooh.
Oh, I love it. All right, tell us why.
Yes.
That is because talk about not making it about you. That probably was a lesson in the Tao of Pooh.
Exactly. Yeah. Just that separation. And I think there's other, I'm trying to think of some that would be, I've got some inappropriate books. I'm trying to think of what's on my bedside table right now that I'm reading, which of course I haven't picked up a book in a while. So that's the beauty of being so busy.
So is it the Tao of Pooh, or should you give us any more fun books?
We'll call it, what is it called? The Secret something? Anyhow, there's some other good ones out there.
Oh, the Secret.
The Secret. Yeah. Which I think is
always like, I had an assistant when that book came out, and I loved it. And he was like, shh. He loved to make fun of me. We had so much fun. Anyway, but The Secret's a great one too. Law of Attraction, all of that good stuff.
Yep, exactly.
So last question. If there is one thing, unless you want to elaborate on the attraction secret stuff.
No, I'm good.
You're like, no, everybody's read it.
Exactly.
That's so 15 years ago.
Exactly.
All right. Let's not be cliche today.
Yes.
Last thing, if there's any one thing you would have us remember from this interview, we're just going to forget everything but one thing. What is that one thing we should take away?
Wow, we've got these powerful questions. I think just taking it back to kind of the context of the purpose of the podcast, which is helping other people find success. But I do think if somebody was going to take away, and I'm just gleaning this through what I said myself, is preparedness and professionalism and really poise when you go in, when you're meeting with anybody, listing or otherwise, or the way we interact with people, and professionalism. I mean, I think that there's things just holding ourselves out as a profession. I think sometimes we're apologetic almost that we're realtors. I find that people, we treat ourselves as if we're not to be inappropriate, like a used car salesperson, that we hold ourselves in the same kind of category, but that we're professionals and we're advisors, and coming in and holding that standard to our profession. I think that's where I think I'd love to see everybody go. I think not everybody will get there all the time, but if that would be advice to somebody, either, super experienced agent that has one based on personality, there's a lot of people out there that do that, but then stepping back to preparedness and the basics, I think that would be my one takeaway.
Great advice. Thank you.
Okay.
That was a great interview. Thanks for being on the show.
Yes, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.